I want to say another big good evening going out to each and every single one of you right across the globe. It's another week of issues today, live on World Jam Global Radio. And we've got another world exclusive for you. My guest today, very dear old friend Satish Sekar, author of Fitted In, founder of Empire Magazine.
It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet.
One of the forensic experts behind the Fitted In, the Cardiff 3.
I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Nothing to change.
Sports journalist. Almost a bit of an entrepreneur.
Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in.
Alongside Satish, today we've got a guy by the name of David Doherty.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Founder of Pathway Sports. And we actually take it on a very, very serious issue today.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
As we always do on issues today.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
You know, there are all sorts of, football is making a lot of money around the world. It's a conglomerate. You know, some players are being sold for £60 million a time. And clubs are making an absolute fortune from marketing and ticket sales. Various authorities and organizations making an absolute fortune from tournaments that are done almost all year round around the world. And still we see, like in every other department, the rich get richer and the poor just get squeezed out. So today we're particularly looking at the aftercare service offered to sporting legends in the African continent who have played an absolutely magnificent role in bringing the World Cup up to a whole new standard.
Already did my time.
When you imagine the feats of Cameroon and Nigeria,
already did my time. Paid for my crime.
Just to name two of the sides that have done pretty well recently. Ivory Coast.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on.
Today we talk about
to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message.
A couple of particular cases indeed.
Statewide, worldwide. There was not a man.
And very shortly, as I introduce my guests, I'll leave them to give you the meat off the bone.
Girls all over the street. I was getting money.
Please don't forget to join us next Saturday at the hour of 6 o'clock GMT, where I'll have another old friend, Mr. Mike Ormsby. He's going to be coming live from Bucharest, Romania.
Trying to cope with this living hell.
And we're looking at an issue that took place in Congolese.
For my crime.
He's the author of a book called Child Witch, where there are families who, when they, through poor and poverty-stricken reasons, label their children as child sorcerers and witches, etc., and turf them out onto the streets to fend for themselves. That's a really big one that we're going to have next Saturday right here.
I never got home my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to
following week, we have a
kind of stupid shit.
telenovela show entitled Who Speaks For Me? And she speaks about all the women that are incarcerated, left to fend for themselves in hardcore prisons. Very little room made for rehabilitation. But we'll deal with that. Keep an eye out on Issues Today on Twitter, Facebook. You can join us on www.worldjamglobalradio.com. You can follow us on TuneIn. You can stay logged in through Twitter, WhatsApp, and Facebook. But we're live on World Jam Global Radio. My name is Kervin Julian, and here's another special edition of Issues Today.
Trying to cope with this living here. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Trying to cope with this living here. This living hell. This living hell. This living hell. Already did my time.
Don't forget, you can join me one more time tomorrow morning at the hour of 8 o'clock when I bring you my special gospel show. And believe you me, I feel a bit of a reggae gospel coming on tomorrow morning.
I will be done on earth.
The theme of tomorrow morning's show, it's gonna get better.
Day, a daily bread.
So stay with me as I bring you some sounds from an artist that I've recently fallen in love with.
And lead us not.
He goes by the name of Christafari.
For thine is the kingdom, the power,
Tough tunes.
ever and ever.
You can join me here on World Jam Global Radio tomorrow morning. But church before church, it's the gospel with a difference. But for tonight, my friends, we're back here on Issues Today, my peak time talk show
Those drive-by killers
with guests Satish Sekar,
ain't about nothing.
David Doherty,
He who was out sin.
and we may still have joining us Jerry Machimba,
Brought back
Junior Lawrence,
full track and have the
Paya Miller,
like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide, and put down those knives. Stop.
and again we apologize for not having Dr. David Romay on the show, and
Yeah.
but hey, you might just have to start getting used to me, hey? But it's the show that is the show that is the show that is the show. It's Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio, coming out to you live from Coventry, England, United Kingdom. Good evening, Satish. Let me first of all tell you a little bit about Satish. I've known Satish for very, very many years. But before I introduce you to Satish, I think I'm going to introduce you to David Doherty. David Doherty, are you there?
I'm there.
Okay.
I'm
Do you
here.
mind, just give our audience a bit of an outline about you, what you're up to, what you do, what you're involved with, and possibly why you're here.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And thank you for having me here. David Doherty simply is a sport administrator. I do a bit of pundit as well. I'm an FA licensed coach, but more of an administrator now. Since we've been working with the Nigerian Football Federation in terms of grassroots development, not just in the area of football only, but in sports generally. So we cut across every other sports, but the focus is more on football that we start with. In terms of linking young Nigerian decent across the diaspora. So we are the body in charge of that. And also we run a non-for-profit organization, which is a community project, which you mentioned earlier on, Pathway Sports. That covers every race and community, not just for Nigerians. It's for every young people from the age of 5 to 25. And the other one is Team Nigeria UK and International that I just mentioned to you.
Wow, that's a lot of work developing young individuals in a sport that I've loved and played for many years. So we're really glad to have you on the show, David, and we're looking forward to your input and your contribution and what you need to bring, what you're going to bring to the table. And before we come back to you, let's just quickly introduce our other guest, Satish Sekar. Now, I've known Satish for a long time, 30 years or more. I think it's more than 30 years, Satish. And I met Satish back in around about 1988, 89, somewhere around there. Probably closer to 1990, possibly. But it was round about there anyway. It was just after the Cardiff Three were arrested, charged and convicted of murder they didn't commit. That's where I met Satish. And we've remained friends ever since. So let me introduce a dear friend. In fact, my name is even in his book. And we've remained great friends ever since. So let me just introduce Satish Sekar, author, And he doesn't like to refer to himself as an activist, but to me he was an activist, forensic scientist and journalist, and gatherer and researcher of all information, and a putter togetherer of many people. Satish Sekar. How are you, Satish?
I'm fine, thank you, Kevin.
Long time no see. Tell the audience just a little bit about you and update them in case they haven't. Because in fact, do you know that you actually appeared on my very, very first ever show?
I wasn't sure it's the first one, but I knew it was one of the early ones.
Yeah, very much so. So it's really great to have you back here, and we've now been doing Issues Today for over 2 years now. So, and I think when we first did the show with you, the program was called "The Thing Is It" back then.
That's correct. It was,
and we've moved on since then. But here we are, 2 years or so later, and it's great to have you back again, my friend. So, introduce yourself, tell the world a little bit about yourself, and then we shall move straight into the nitty gritty.
Okay, well, I'm a journalist and consultant, and well, I suppose an activist in a way. I'm trying to do some charity work with the Fitted In Project and also Empower Sport. It does actually cut across in doing the same thing and over the aftercare issue where it affects sport, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But we also have a couple of books coming out because, unfortunately, the Lynette White Cardiff 5 story just won't end. And they do seem to be trying to make a complete and utter mess of it from a position where it's almost an achievement to do that. But I want to concentrate more today on the sporting issues that we're trying to deal with, and the lack of care for legends of football who really deserved a lot better than they're getting at the moment. In particular, we're going to talk about a Zambian legend and captain of the Chipolopolo, which is the name of the Zambian football team, by the name of Emmy Musonda, because he, to some extent, inspired this project.
Okay, well, that's absolutely great. And I suppose to sum things up, well, not just to sum things up, but just as an intro, I do believe in this country we have things like the Footballers Association and we have various other organisations that take care of the needs of players while they're playing, players who get injured and have long-term injury, and players who are retired through injury. And I do believe that we also have organisations that support the families of players who die long after their playing days have been over. So in countries like here in the UK, we actually have systematic organisations that support not just the players, but families of players and children of players for many years after their playing days are over, including when you have individuals such as, Paul Gascoigne, who went on to I think it was a drinking binge, and George Best was another. Some of the, you had one or two players who ended up on drug-related issues, and some of them who had gambling issues. But, there was a system that was available to support them and care for them and their families as they went through these troubled times. And so I suppose when you look at that and you compare that with what you're trying to talk about here, it seems like there's a lot of money being made, teams being brought in from all different parts of the country, but the pots, or the structure and infrastructure, is not as equally shared out, once a pot of money has been split. So please tell us a bit more about the Zambian captain and what this story entails, and we'll start to dig into this.
Well, it started 4 years ago when I first met Emmy Musonda in Lusaka with Jerry Muchimba. He was the person who introduced us. And I conducted an interview with him. And at the time, I thought he was saying some things which were rather strange. And it ended with him quietly taking me aside and asking me to pay for the meal, which is not a problem. But I was a bit surprised by this because I thought, well, you're an ex-footballer, you're a captain of your country. How come you can't pay for your own meal? At the time, I didn't think too much of it. I subsequently found out why he couldn't pay for his own meal, and why not just he couldn't pay for his meal, he couldn't take care of himself. And it absolutely was not his fault. as I didn't know then what I now know. And what I now know is that in 1993, something happened to him. But before that, he was one of the greats of Zambian football. He led his country in the 1982 version of the Africa Cup of Nations to third place. He was a durable defender, captain, on-pitch leader, and he also led Zambia in Egypt in CAF's 25th anniversary celebration match, which was against Egypt. And he played against a man he later told me was the best player that he had ever played against. That man is Egyptian legend Mahmoud El Khatib, who I will talk about a little bit later. But what happened with all of this is that in 1993, his playing career had ended, and he had just gone into coaching. So he had a plan that he wasn't going to be one of these people who didn't sort of continue working and didn't have a plan to look after himself. He actually did have a plan all along, and he was executing that plan. But the team bus that he was on crashed. And it crashed because of a very, very poor bit of driving by the team's driver in an ill-advised overtaking manoeuvre, and it left some players injured and him seriously injured. He was brain damaged, not vegetative state, but he would say things that he probably would never have said but for this accident. And he wasn't able to look after himself. He didn't have the ability to sue the people responsible for what had happened. He didn't get the advice, and he didn't get looked after by the team that was responsible for the driver. All they did is provide him with some accommodation, and it's not in a very nice area in Lusaka that he lives. He basically now, after this situation, got diabetes and had to have his left leg amputated above the knee. He doesn't have a wheelchair. He doesn't even have metal crutches because they buckled under his weight. He now uses very poor, unsuitable wooden crutches. This man, you have to understand and remember, was an elite level athlete. He was one of the best defenders Zambia ever produced. And he was unable to look after himself, and football isn't looking after him in the way that it should, because this man has a lot of knowledge. He still has knowledge that can be imparted to young players and to in schools to various to children, to tell them how to live their lives right, because you've got to remember, an elite level athlete, he never ever thought that what happened to him could happen. And he thought when he was young in his career that he was young, he was indestructible, nothing bad was ever going to happen to him.
Here's the thing, Satish. When players start playing in countries like Zambia, for example, is it a glamorous sport? Is it a high profile sport like it is here in the UK, for example?
Oh yeah, absolutely, it is.
So they're upheld as heroes.
Yes, definitely. There's no question.
Stars.
He's a legend in Zambia.
Right. Okay. So when if he was to go to the shopping mall or go down the street, he'd be recognised. He'd be swarmed by people wanting autographs and that sort of thing.
I don't know that he'd be recognised as much now as he would have been, say, 10 years ago.
No. I'm referring to 10 years ago. I'm referring to 10 years ago. So the bottom line is, in his peak, when he was taking to the pitch, he was a celebrity.
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
he still is now. I mean,
no, absolutely. I understand that. Hang on, 1 second, Satish. The point I'm trying to get to is, during his playing career, he would have been upheld and acknowledged, right, as almost as a star, as we would over here with the Paul Gascoignes, the George Best, Matthew Le Tissiers, the Glenn Hoddles, our British players that rise, to superstardom. Michael Owen, Alan Shearer, I mean, these people are... So what infrastructure is there within Zambia itself? Because Zambia as a country must be making money from the sports, right?
Not as much as you would like it to earn.
Okay.
Not as much as they would like to earn. The situation in Zambia is they don't have as much resources to take care of this issue as they would like. So they can't put as much into this as they want to put into it. However, we did manage to achieve quite a lot when we went to Zambia, because now there is a fledgling equivalent of the Professional Footballers Association. It's called FAWUS, the Football and Allied Workers Union of Zambia. And they are in the process of developing ties with an organization, a world organization called FIFPro, which I asked to take up the case of Emmy Musonda about a year ago, and it's now beginning to happen. That Musonda should now get the support he deserves and needs, and we were able to put him back in touch with some of the football legends and the people in charge of Zambian football again, so that we have high hopes that Emmy's situation is going to get a lot better, thanks partly to the project that we took to Zambia and which the Zambians have embraced.
So let me just say this. Back some years ago, whether it be the 60s, 70s or 80s, somebody realized that there was an opening to set up some sort of infrastructure to support professional players in this country. And some of the other countries have followed suit, right? So I'm beginning to, I do understand that in some of the African continent, you would have had a delay in them getting to that place where football was as much an industry as it is now. But why hasn't anything been instigated or initiated by themselves from the beginning that shows that they've actually got a willingness to try and support something for the very sport that they also must be making some money from?
It hasn't been making the money, enough sort of money, and it also hasn't had the support that maybe it should have had from the governing bodies over that period of time. But now we have a new sort of broom sweeping through African football. Recently, Issa Hayatu's 29-year rule of CAF ended, and they now have a new person in charge of CAF. So hopefully these type of projects will be taken up. But to be fair, CAF did get involved late in the day. It was actually quite refreshing to see how they would cut through the red tape in order to help. Once they heard what this was all about, they actually bent over backwards to help. Like, for example, Musonda was very, very, very disappointed that he and other Zambian footballers, ex-footballers, weren't included in this tournament. And it took us going there and talking to people to say, well, this is just wrong. Why are you doing this? Why aren't they being invited as ambassadors and being taken around as honoured guests? It became too late to get it sorted out fully. But on the last day that I was in Zambia, I had an interview with Wedson Nerenga, who is now the Zambian coach. He was at the time as well. And I told him about this situation. And I asked him, will you invite these people to come to the matches at National Hero Stadium for the ones around Lusaka, and to the Levi Mwanawasa Stadium for ones in Ndola? And he pledged in a recorded interview that he would definitely do that. So this is now taking root. They're going to be treated as honoured guests, and football and the sports ministry of Zambia is taking this matter very, very seriously. They're now looking to do things to support these people. And we hope that it isn't just going to be football, because Zambia is a sporting country. It loves its sport, And it isn't just football. There are other sports where these projects are needed.
Is part of the reason why it can take place like that is the big boys bully game, where because Zambia isn't one of the big playing institutions of world football, they're not regular quarter-finalists or semi-finalists. They're not a successful national team that they can easily be bullied or pushed to one side or ignored. And shouldn't the World Football Federation actually have some sort of association that supports every football organisation throughout the world?
Well, it does. FIFA does have the ability to do that. It can do it through its confederations. It can do it through its national organisations as well, its national governing bodies. The problem is that in Zambia in particular, that Zambia has had the worst ever disaster affecting a national football team. And that has still not been properly addressed, not only within Zambia, but also by football in general. I'm talking about the Gabon plane crash of 1993, which practically wiped out the Zambian football team. Very, very few people who were involved in that team, just coming up to that, were left alive to play afterwards, obviously. And Zambia rebuilt, and it rebuilt with football helping it to do so. But the actual issues around the crash have never been fully considered and dealt with. And this is part of the problem, because I did an article about this because 5 years ago, I had an interview with the then sports minister of Zambia, and he promised that he would release the Gabon plane crash report. 5 years on, we're still waiting. And if this had happened in another country, say, for example, it had happened in Spain before they became the great Spanish team, or it had happened in Germany, or any of the European countries before they had a great, great team, there's no way we wouldn't know what had happened and how this had all come about after such a long period of time. So you have to ask the question, why is this allowed to happen with Zambia?
Let's just bring in David a minute. David.
Yes, please.
You're working with a lot of young players you're trying to develop them from a very early age into the sport. I mean, how demoralizing is it for you that you're bringing in young players who want to aspire to be the next George Best, the next Paul Gascoigne, the next Ronaldo, the next Ronaldinho, and yet there isn't an infrastructure already in place to support them if that was to go wrong?
I think you're very, very right with what you just mentioned about the young people, because these are the things that put so many young people off of the sport itself due to lack of support. And I will commend Satish in regards to what they actually trying to do, because when he actually called to mention this to me, and I said it's a very good initiative, very, very good idea. This should have been something that should have been going on, coming from the points that you actually raised. Like you mentioned, the Zambian player. This is something that cuts across Africa. It's not just in Zambia. I think it's the same problem with the Nigerian community and players as well. And I think this is one thing we've been trying to do to mentor these young people about, not just for them to look back when at the days that they're actually playing as professionals, probably look at ways to actually back up themselves with some kind of education. I think one of the things that is missing these days is every young people just want to go into football, but they don't look at what else they can do outside the game itself. Say, for example, if they get injured, and that's where the problem comes in. The likes of Emmy that Satish mentioned. I think if he would have had something as a backup in terms of education, which I will blame the federation itself for, because this is one thing the PFA does. This is what the PFA does. I mean, players like Chris Iwelumo, is a good example. Iwelumo and Sheyi Olofinjan, a lot of them, and also even this guy that fell against what's his name again? The match, the Premier League match, I think between Sports, what's his name again? The
Fabrice Muamba.
Fabrice, yeah. Fabrice is also a classmate with my wife in school, and he's such a brilliant student. And I think that's one thing that actually helped him back on track. Looking at him falling into something that he could do outside sports, probably journalism, media, hospitality. There's a lot that you can do within sports if you still want to stay around there. But I think that's what is missing, and I think that is what I'm particularly afraid of now is what can we do in terms of those back home, those people that have actually played, or represent the country in national engagements, and going forward with these young people. And these are the things that actually put them off. For them to say, well, can I put myself forward to play for Nigeria or any African country? If they keep hearing this sort of news, and I think it's something not very, very encouraging from the young people perspective. I think a lot needs to be done to support them, regardless where we are, maybe in UK or Europe or in Africa. I think a lot needs to be done, a lot regarding supporting player. And educating them is very, very, very important.
I can remember back in the day when most of our celebrated legends of football were normally regarded as quite thick. You take David Beckham, for example. I mean, he is a multi-millionaire, but put him in front of a microphone and he's terrible, which means that he could never have developed into being a pundit, for example, on Sky Sports or a match commentator, or I don't think he would make a good football manager because his communication skills are very poor. What is the earning power for a professional footballer playing in the African continent? And I'm not talking about those that go off to play in Italy or France, or I'm talking about what is the earning power of a footballer turning professional playing in his African continent countries?
With those back home, in terms of I think, do you mean the financial?
Yeah, I mean the earning power. What can they can earn? When they transfer between club and club. For example, if when David Beckham was being transferred from one club to another, or even if you look at some of the other, Gareth Bale, £60 million from Spurs to Real Madrid. I mean, and then the player themselves gets a percentage of that signing on fee. When the club wants to renew their contract, they renew their contract, and there's a percentage of that sign-on re-signing fee that they get up front, etc. What is the earning power? Is what I'm trying to get at. So
for those, you mean for those players back home, right?
That's correct.
I think if you look at the currency back home, not really too much. But I think there's still, back in the days when I used to play for one of the local clubs. It's not a local club, but at least one of the Premier League side. It's called Concord Football Club. I think we still have some players that earn up to $1 million plus naira, which is about almost 4,000. Let's say, for example, £4,000 or £4,500 now. As a monthly,
but that's still a lot of money according to your currency back home, right? So
absolutely,
without trying to compare it to the currency in the UK or in Italy or anywhere else, for your currency, that's a lot of money, right?
Absolutely.
So what's done with the money that's been? Because, for example, I'm not trying. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, right? Because David Beckham, in all respects, was thick. Right? He was a great footballer on the pitch, but he was thick. He can't talk to save his life. He can't communicate to save his bacon. And there's no way that he could actually go on to be a TV panelist or host his own sports show or anything else like that. Because when you hear him speak, you'll understand why David Beckham is not really a public figure. But what he was able to do was utilize his money to build a brand that made sure that him and his family never went short when he left the game. So what I'm trying to say is, when you've got players that are earning money in football, what are they doing with this money in order for them to try and secure their present and their future for their families, and etc. To go into business, or because they don't always have to be intelligent. David Beckham wasn't intelligent, but he just had people around him that advised him how to use his money smartly.
And I think that brings me back to what I just mentioned, and you've mentioned it now. Most of these players in their playing days, I don't think they have the right people around them. I think they're really looking back. I think Satish mentioned it as well. During their playing days, they think, oh, they're untouchable, they are the best, or things will still keep going on the way it is. But I think one thing that was missing, and that keeps missing among African players and people around them, which I believe most of the agents and people that are close to them, their family members, should be doing, is to actually mentor them and tell them, oh, this is what it is. This is what the playing days and careers could be. Anything can happen anytime from anytime. You need to start investing. You need to start polishing yourself. What would you like to do outside sports? You don't have to be a pundit. Example is, like you mentioned, David Beckham. He could see himself as a model. Think, okay, well, you don't need to talk as a model. Maybe one or few words. What you just need is to dress up. And think about what you love to do aside from football. And these are the things these people should be mentored about. They don't have the right people around them. I think that's one of the things that are missing. Up to now, we still have some players that are still going off the track, thinking, well, the money will still be going the way it is. Yeah. But they need somebody to be with them to support them rightly.
Okay, so Satish.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about Musonda. So he was a Zambian captain and a very successful player. So was he able to put anything aside? Did he, while he was earning, while he was playing before he had the accident, was he able to build secure some sort of a future for his family, or did he just not have that earning?
That's the point. He actually had the plan, and he was executing that plan. He basically was an on the pitch leader, so it was natural that he would go into coaching. That's what he did. What he couldn't deal with and couldn't plan for was the accident that robbed him of everything. And it happened very early in his coaching career. So he wasn't able to put a great deal aside. You have to remember, at the time he was playing, they didn't earn the money that they earn in football now. Yeah. So he wasn't ever going to be able to have put aside massive amounts of money, but he put aside enough to be comfortable, or would have been, because he would still have been earning. You have to remember, this man's career, as with most players, is pretty much over by the time you're 35.
Yeah.
So most of your working, and that's if you've got an extreme longevity. Most footballers don't play at elite level up to 35 years old. So most of their working life is going to be off the pitch. And that means you have to plan for it. Emi Musonda did plan for it. What he didn't plan for is what subsequently happened to him, which nobody could plan for. And this is something that Fawuz and FAS and CAF and FIFA needs to do something about. They need to make sure that these young players now, it's too late for the ones that have already had their careers, but there's got to be proper sports insurance. It's got to be part of the contract negotiations from the very start. So if something happens to you and you can't fulfill the rest of your career as you would have wished to do so, you're going to be looked after. Because the other point with the Musonda situation, and also others, is that they don't have the medical care that they need and deserve because there wasn't a medical plan for them.
Wow. So what we're really looking at is why isn't world football, why isn't the world governing body making sure that the sort of care that is afforded to the Italians or the Spanish and the British in particular, why isn't that afforded to all? Why is there not a the same as is a world federation body, the FIFA, why isn't there some sort of an institutionalized insurance agency that covers all footballers all over the world for almost a union fee? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
Something like that. I mean, this is something that eventually the organisations like the PFA were able to do to some extent, at least in British football. And in time, I would expect to see this happen in African football as well. The problem is, it's too late for people like Emi Musonda to actually get that. Who's going to insure him now?
Yeah,
who's going to provide the medical attention and the medical cover plan that he needs after the disaster has happened to him? And it's similar. It's not just him. You've got to also bear in mind the other one I mentioned, that crash in 2014 that severely affected Nyambe Mulenga and Sachmo Chakawa. They lost their playing careers. They're still able to work. They're still able to do things outside of football. Not what they want to do, not what they should have to do, but at least they have this choice now. What choice has Changwe Kalale got? The man is paralysed because while he was on national team duty, the coach crashed and it left him without his career, requiring medical attention that he doesn't receive. This is something that the sports governing body, FAS, which is the Football Association of Zambia, cannot provide the level of support that Kalale and others like him need. Then CAF has to step in. And if CAF, the Confederation of African Football, doesn't have enough resources to cover this, and you've got to bear in mind, we're not just talking about Zambia. As David has mentioned, there are similar issues in Nigeria. And I know also that this affects Cameroon. And I would not be surprised. And you have to bear in mind, these are three of the top footballing nations in Africa. Imagine what's going on in the poorer federations. And by that, I mean on and off the pitch as well. Teams that are not as successful as these. What are they going to be able to do to look after their players and ex-players who have issues such as this? There's a huge problem, and it's not just in Africa. You bet you can see this in Asia as well, and probably in South America and in the CONCACAF region as well. This huge problem in world football needs to be addressed. Football is incredibly wealthy. It's time it actually put some of that money aside to take care of people who have actually served their country and served football very well, and through no fault of their own now need help.
Let's go back to David a minute. David, you're doing a lot of work with the younger people, and we're going backwards and forwards to try and get this done. Somewhere along the line, I'm getting some interference from either one of you. There is some almost a scratching noise. If we can try and get rid of that, that would help. But David, in the work that you're doing with young people, as you get them from amateur to professional, what precautions and preparations are put in place to ensure that these kids are getting off to a good start?
I think one of the things, like I said earlier on, is for these young people to get a proper mentoring and support while going into a professional level. And I think that's what is missing across the board, not just in Africa, even here in UK. One thing we always want to do is to support them as much as we can, not just ourselves, but also the parents. We also advise the parents. We do have like a meeting. We've got a forum that we talk to them, give them example, and then we've got a program that we do, just very similar to what Satish mentioned about Emi, that the government should have put in place in terms of these legends going into schools to mentor, to tell their stories, how it all started, the challenges they faced, and these are the things that we do with one of our programs that we do on air, which is more on the platform where many young people are, which is the social media platform. It's called Extra Time with what we actually do is to bring all these players that are currently playing that are at the elite level, professional players in Premier League or even outside the country, Nigerians and friends of Nigerians. And also what we do is we bring them live and do some kind of inspirational chat with them. And we allow people to send in questions and then, ask them things that actually, how they actually started, their stories, the challenges they faced in terms of rejection, in terms of being released in clubs, how they managed to go through those hurdles, the supports that they actually had. And you find out that is mainly the same thing around that. The parents are very, very instrumental in this. One thing I believe that will actually help is also having the parents supporting these young people, because we can do what we can, but these young people spend a lot of time with their parents at home. It doesn't. The school is one, but I think more time they spend with their parents. The parents need to take charge and do the relevant support that they actually need. So one of the things that we encourage and we always say to these young people is for them to have someone that will be like a mentor to them while they are playing, that will be supporting them, that they can actually go to and ask if there's anything that is unclear, that is disturbing, that could distract them, or if they actually going on the wrong path. So I think what we need to see more is to have more mentoring support for players and athletes, not just footballers alone.
Here's a question for you. In places like Britain, Germany, Spain, Italy, France, there are many leagues of types of different football, professional as well as amateur, county district, youth, etc. That there's a massive infrastructure of football association from a very young age and on every different type of skill level, and people progress through them, and taking away the scouts, etc., and the football academies. We're talking about the grounds that are all over the place and the different types of leagues that generates our next potential stars. What sort of a league system exists within the African continent that feeds financially into the football infrastructure?
I don't think we have such facilities, because some of the like I said, to some of the questions that we raised, with these players now playing in Europe, these are the things we ask them, not just the ones that are born here, but the ones that actually came from Africa or Nigeria. These are the questions we throw to them, that what can they say about the facilities, the support system that is in place, the environment that they play, that they have in terms of that allows them to develop quicker and faster and get them to stay focused with their football. And that's one of the things that is missing back home. In terms of investment in sports, I think it's very, very less. It's not just in Zambia, even in Nigeria, the support system in terms of government, not just the government is doing its own bits, but looking at the corporate organizations, what do you call it, companies and everything, investing in sports more, I think is very, very, very low. And I think it's really affecting grassroots a lot, because that's one of the things that we've been campaigning about, that if your grassroots is not well solid, if it's not solid enough, there's no amount of pounds or millions that you can spend at the top that will make your football great, because everyone is waiting for the time to just pick a player and send them to Europe, but they don't look at the development around it, the facilities, the things that will encourage players to come in, and even players that can come from other countries to come and play in the league. Recently we have some players that came from Brazil, playing in a professional club in Nigeria, which is Ifeanyi Uba, some Brazilians. And I think if a proper system is in place, they would see more, influx of foreign players coming into the league that will bring some kind of colors and additions to the league. People coming out, to watch and pay, for these games. More revenues that will be generated by all these clubs that they could, invest in their grassroots ball. One thing is, most of these clubs in Africa don't even have an academy. Academies that you see in Africa are mainly by individuals. Most of the professional clubs don't. And I think that's one of the things that Nigeria, the NPFL, is trying to do to encourage most of them to start having a youth team in place that can actually grow up to become, that can actually improve the sport itself in general. So it's a big problem. It's a big ordeal for them. And I think that's what we've been preaching. And that's one thing that we've been trying to encourage them to invest in, so that we can have more young people developing, through the ranks.
Okay. Well, I'm actually glad you mentioned that. I'm just going to interrupt here because one of our other projects, which are working with Zambia on and Zambian clubs on, is called the Academies Project, and it's actually aimed at dealing with that, because it's actually in the interests of the African clubs and also the African young players, and we would argue the investing clubs, for there to be an investment in the African academies in return for a first refusal on the talent there, so that they can put the money into developing their youth structures and provide better facilities to create better players, which would benefit both. Well, basically, it would benefit everybody. That's one of the other projects that we're working on.
When Brazil was given the World Cup, it actually had no real infrastructure to support that, but they were given a lot of money to build the grounds. If the African continent were to bid and receive an opportunity to run the World Cup, do you think that will make that they would use that money in an appropriate way to build some sort of structured institution for football?
Looking at, mentioning the World Cup coming to Africa, I think we've had one in South Africa, but I think if anyone, we've had the junior one being hosted in Nigeria. But I think what is missing here, one thing that is actually missing also, that is really affecting sports in Africa, is mismanagement of funds, which is corruption, and is a big disease in the whole Africa, not just in one particular country. But I believe one thing that is really bringing all these setback is the corruption problem. And if that can be curbed, because I know there's no way we can eradicate it totally, but if it can be curbed and reduced, I think there will be more. There will be a lot of investments will come in. People will want to invest in sports. Corporate bodies will want to come in. A lot of sponsorship will come in that will also help. Academies. Well, the likes of just to quickly deviate, we have the likes of Barcelona having a partnership with Lagos State. With an academy in Lagos State just recently. I think it's going to a year now. And we have, I think, PSG. There's another one coming up. PSG is also looking to have an academy, which they've been setting up in Nigeria. And I think we will see more of that if the funds are actually well utilized. Even if World Cup is being organized in Africa or in any part of Nigeria, the problem is, would the money be used appropriately and put in place for the right reasons, not for selfish interests? And I think that's the problem that we're facing, and it's really, really a big ordeal.
I'm glad you mentioned the corruption issue, because I wanted to bring that up myself. But do you think that the corruption issue is a major reason why a lot more finance is not being flooded through the infrastructure of the African continent football?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that is aiding sponsorship. Corporate bodies can invest in sports. Even the government is actually pulling back a bit, not too much. A lot of people would have loved to invest in sports, but really, is the problem of corruption across the board that is actually putting a lot of people off. And that's why you see individuals trying to do their own thing, trying and make a little difference. But I think with time, if we start seeing people rising up to say no to corruption, I think that will help. It's not just about one particular industry, and I think it's all the industry in general. Corruption is really killing sports in Africa, and even having the wrong people at the helm of administration in sports is another problem. And because if you look at sports in Africa, most of the people that are in power are either been put in position of sports without having a background of sports at all. And I think these are the things that also affect the smooth running of sports in Nigeria and other African countries. So a lot needs to be done in that area if we really want to see the kind of football or sports that we see here in Europe or in United Kingdom, in Africa.
Satish?
I also think we should point out this is not just an African problem. And in fact, the worst examples of corruption in the FIFA scandal weren't in Africa. There was serious problems in South America and also in CONCACAF in particular. Asia didn't escape from it. And let's not forget the president of UEFA, Michel Platini, was banned from football for a while.
Yeah, that's very true. And corruption is rife, but here's the thing. They will argue that they did what they had to do in order to seek it out and rid themselves of it. And they would even say that in the Athletics Association, where they've just also recently had some issues surrounding corruption. So I just feel that from hearing what I'm hearing, if they could get the corruption that is known to take place in some of these areas, that substantial sponsorship might be a more positive reality. Would you not agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you also have to bear in mind that in Africa, corruption wasn't simply a matter of sport and football. Let's not forget the enormous resources stolen from African countries by dictatorial leaders such as Mobutu Sese Seko, for example. That money was continually given, aid was given to Mobutu's regime when everybody knew what was happening with it. It wasn't going to the Congolese people. Everybody knew this. And that needs to be dealt with as well, because you can't single out the administration of sport and football without actually looking at how government deals with resources as well. If there is corruption within the body politic, then of course you're going to have problems with sporting bodies as well.
Yeah, so for me, that's one side of it. The corruption is obviously a negative aspect that's having people really trying to work hard towards that. But on top of that, there are some still real standing issues that need to be encouraged and supported by the sportsmen that maintain that sport in that country, irrespective of what people might think about the standing of corruption in those countries, no? Hello, are you guys there?
Yes,
I'm just saying that whether or not there is corruption in those countries, should there still not be an attempt to try and support the individuals that play through the football, regardless of what the corruption standards are?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right regarding regardless corruption or no corruption, I think we still have the resources to support all these players, and I think that's one of the things that the football, not just the players alone, because what we see is people approaching the players individually, but I think a body needs to be set up, and also by the federation itself in those African countries should also they should also help in terms of raising awareness around this, because and also even given some of these legends that has served the country in a big way, something around sports to encourage them, jobs, employment within the football industry, for them to take up, like you mentioned, coaching, refereeing, a lot around it, sports administrators administrative roles. But these are the things that are missing. They don't get that support. They don't get that encouragement. Most of them are being abandoned. They don't get looked after. And I think a lot needs to be done. It still falls back to the federation to do more. They can't just leave it for individuals to do alone. They themselves needs to rise up and support initiative like this, so that we can get it right, going forward.
Yeah, for me, there are ways that they can still go in and support an individual or individuals or the infrastructure of the sport without leaving the money in the hands of those that are corrupted. If FIFA, the world body, was to set up a world organization that ensured and secured the insurance of players against injury and all sorts, it doesn't have to be governed by an individual country. It's just governed by FIFA, full stop. And there's almost a unilateral pot of money that's available from the governing body that individuals would apply to and be supported by in case of injury or loss of earnings. You, as much as I understand why people tend not to get involved with countries that have a history of bad corruption, there are ways and means of setting about a structured organization that doesn't actually have to be left in the hands of those they fear to be corrupt.
I think you've said it all. Even if FIFA set up a body to say, this is what we're going to be doing, but they still have to liaise with each of the FAs in those countries.
Absolutely.
For them to actually. But what they need to now do is to set up a pot for that. And you mentioned something about insurance. I don't think African players or even African clubs do pay much attention around that. Player welfare is zero for me. Is poor. A lot of things needs to be addressed.
But should, seen as those clubs and the country is making money from them, should that not be the first port of call? To make sure, hang on a minute. If you had a valuable asset, right? If you had a valuable asset and you've just had this valuable asset put into your possession, would not be the first thing that you do is find how best you could secure this in case of any loss?
Absolutely. That should have been the first point of call. Like I mentioned, welfare, players' welfare. I don't think that is in place. I don't even think is even existing in most of these professional clubs in Africa. It might be in some African countries, but in few of them, do they really pay too much attention to it? Do they even have youth setup around safeguarding players? And I think those things are the things that they need to learn. Things they need to be taught, a workshop, all those things about what it is to become a player, what a player needs in terms of support, insurance, welfare system, a safeguarding officer, a lot of things around it that will make you a player, that can allow a player to stay focused around what they're doing on and off the pitch. But to my African country, I think a lot is lacking, and a lot needs to be done in that area. And this is where CAF needs to stand up we've got like Satish mentioned, we've got a new leader there, Ahmad Hamad, I think from Madagascar, and I think also with the addition of Pinnick into the CAF this team, I think a lot needs to be addressed in terms of welfare system, how it's being managed that can support player through their career, through their playing career, and also while they actually retired, not playing, and looking at ways they can support players that have actually served the country one way or the other, and give them the right support needed. These are the things they need to do more, rather than just looking at enriching their pockets. That's the problem. A lot of people are there just to enrich themselves. They don't care about the players. They care less about them. The players are just there for them to just kick around the ball, but no one's look after them after their playing career, and it's very, very sad.
It is so, but here's an enlightenment, right? I've been out to the Caribbean several times, and as much as I love going out to the Caribbean and spending time with my family who live out there, and many cousins and stuff that I know that are out there, you tend to go around to some of the villages and the towns up there, and you wonder how they survive sometimes the way that they do. And for me, I think to myself, if you put certain things in place up front, then people are more likely to take you seriously. Well, let me, in a nutshell, give you what I mean. So in St. Lucia, I have many cousins who would like to start their own business. But A, they don't have no finance, and B, they don't have no education. But they have no idea how to put a business plan together. They have no idea about what appearance they should have, how they should present themselves, or how they should present their business idea. Most of them will just turn up with for example, a car mechanic will turn around and say, well, if you just give me a little spot, I'll be a car mechanic. But they take nothing of real source into consideration. They're not thinking about the electric bill or the cost of the land or anything else. And so I suppose what I'm trying to say here is, if they were to take more seriously the basic infrastructural needs of a football club, a football team, or a sporting association, then other people will also take them seriously, irrespective. And again, we go back to this corruption thing. Forget about the corruption. When people see you doing your thing right, they're more likely to invest because they know that you're doing the right thing. So forget about the government being corrupt, or forget about different organizations being corrupt. If you yourself set your stall out, and what I mean by that, if the clubs themselves was to say that I'm going to put the players' interest as paramount before anything, because without those players we don't have a club. If those players don't go out and produce the goods on that pitch, right, we don't succeed. If we don't succeed, our fans won't follow us. If our fans don't follow us, we don't get no money. If we don't get no money, we can't pay those players. In fact, we can't pay ourselves. Right? There's a whole system of things that has to be put in place that gets people to see that these people are serious about football. And when people see those basic issues laid down in the infrastructure, they can see that they're dealing with people that mean business. So for me, I think, first and foremost, what I would be doing, even in these early stages, I'd be going around the clubs and trying to spur them up into doing the right thing. There are companies all over the world that would take up the insurance issue outside of the government or the corruption that you're seeing. And the bottom line is, the clubs can include that in the players' salaries. There's means and ways that this can all be orchestrated to make sure that the preservation of those players' lives are intact, right? That their careers are being looked after, that their futures are being respected and understood, and that something is being put aside as a nest egg in case that this particular journey that they're on should fall short or fail. And when clubs start doing that from the very core, right, they're setting themselves up for other people to want to come inside and invest and put some money into that situation. But we've got to start getting it right from the inside first. Wouldn't you agree, Satish?
You've actually read the mind of the what a Sporting Chance of Aftercare is actually doing with the clubs in Zambia in particular, because we are actually saying exactly that. And we're also saying that the Zambian Sports Ministry, we've been invited by the Zambian Sports Ministry to outline our plans of how we intend to develop the project and ensure that the recent tournament, the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, has the legacy that it should have. And we've also been asked by the Cameroonian Football Federation to submit our plans to them too. This is going to be a large part of it, because I have been arguing that it is now essential that the club provide sports insurance for their players, and that it starts with the younger ones at the start of their career, and that this be explained to them by people like Emi Musonda. Imagine what could have happened and should have happened if Emi had had the insurance back in the 1980s that he should have had. He would then be financially secure now. He'd be getting the medication that he actually needs, and he may still have a career, because Emi can provide punditry. And this is something I would like to take up with the Zambian and African media. There's no reason why they can't employ these legends of the game and give them some extra income. Maybe not employ them for every 365 days a year, but they can certainly bring them for major events such as this particular one, the Africa Cup of Nations, the Under-21, the actual Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, all these types of things. They can actually provide assistance in that way to help these people help themselves. It's just not happening, though.
Satish, there is something happening with your signal that keeps coming over here. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know what you've got on next to you, but it's actually coming through. Whether you've got some sound on in the background, but I'm going to ignore that for a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear very well as well. I'm struggling to hear.
No, I don't have anything else on.
Okay. Well, there is a very squeaky, scratchy noise that's coming over only when you're on. I can
hear a scratchy noise as well, but I'm not sure what is causing that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try and pretend that we can't hear it and let's get through, because I'm really beginning to enjoy this. I just want to go back to David. While we're looking at this, what Satish is talking about sounds very exciting on paper. How does it look as a reality? Are clubs and the football associations buying into this idea?
Kevin, please, could you repeat that? I can hardly hear that question, please.
Okay. What Satish was just talking about. About what they're trying to do, based on what I said earlier about how it should be done from root base. Are the clubs buying into this idea?
Kevin?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Yeah. But can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly, but maybe the sound is in the background with you. Have you got something on in the background, sir?
No, there's not. I just took mine off now. There's nothing sounding, but okay. It's just the question I can hardly hear. Just reading.
I can hear you clearly. So what I'm saying is, maybe Satish, you could answer that question rather than we go over it again.
Okay.
Well, I'll actually have to ask you to repeat the question.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, based on what you've just said. That I was reading the mind of what this organisation is trying to do. My question is, are the clubs buying into that idea?
I can answer that with the clubs I've spoken to have been very open to the ideas that I've been putting forward. However, I do have to get this done and provide the documentation that the Cameroonian Federation has requested and the Zambian Sports Ministry, and that will be done within a week. At that point, we will hope that they will take these projects up, and we will then be able to talk to the clubs individually by going back to Africa, because this is going to have to be done in Africa. It isn't going to be something you can do over the phone, and it isn't going to be something you can do over the internet. You have to actually go and talk to them and convince them that this is in their interest. And the arguments you were actually putting forward are exactly the arguments that need to be sort of put forward to them, because they actually do need to understand it's in their own interest to do this. If they don't, they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot. So I certainly got, with two clubs that I actually spoke to before I left Zambia, that I was knocking at an open door. And also with the sports ministry in Zambia, the door is open. So it's up to us to go through this door, and it's up to us to push this forward. All are aware of the projects and that they can be part of. Fawuz, for one, have come on board. They definitely want to ensure that the Zambian football players are properly at every level. So they see the need for this. FAS also sees the need for it, and so does the Zambian Sports Ministry. The clubs will too.
Right. Now, we just heard a clear sound of either a TV or a radio or something that just came over the air while we were just on air then. So somebody has got something on in the background and they need to turn it off because it's having a dramatic effect on the quality of this broadcast. And it's really going to make for poor listening when we repeat it later on. And we're not doing ourselves any favours by keeping this noise on in the background.
There's no radio or TV on here.
Okay, well, it just came. Whether you heard it or not, it just came on while we were talking just then, and then there is almost an echo to everything that's being said. So somebody has got something on in the background, and whatever it is, it just needs to be turned off. Anyway, going on with that, Satish, because I really think this is great work that's being done, and obviously it's early stages. How confident are you that you're going to be able to accomplish what it is that you're setting out to do?
I'm very optimistic that we can actually achieve what we're trying to do. It is simply a case of the logistic support that we need here needs to happen. We need to get organised and have our sort of structures meet with the needs that are actually there to facilitate everything that we're trying to do. If we get the support we need in an organisational level, we can certainly deliver this. And there's no reason why we can't. The ideas are there and the ideas are liked and approved of. It's now a question of how do we turn these ideas on paper into concrete reality.
Okay, so David, what is your minimum requirement when you're working with young people and you're getting ready to move them onto the professional level? What are your minimum requirements that you're going to ask a club to put in place to make sure that young player has some sort of a support as he goes into a team?
I think is what we've been saying and talking about since we started this program, is for them to actually understand how football is being run. Looking at example here in Premier League, see the support system in place, see what they need to do to actually help to develop players from grassroots. The environment, the facilities, the programs that will be delivered, the people the personnel that are going to be delivering these very, very programs, not just for them to go on the pitch and play the game and everyone gets the money that they needed and then off they've gone. But they need to understand a lot is put in place to ensure players deliver week in, week out, enjoy what they're doing, enjoy the facilities that they actually train in. All those things are the things that is missing. And I think a lot needs to be done in that area to not just to teach the people administering sports to understand that football or sports is not just about coming to the pitch to play. It involves a lot of support to get the best out of the players, because without those players, like you mentioned, nobody will get paid. People will make their money. Nobody will come to the pitch to watch them. Marketing department will not have anything to talk about. Nothing will be put out there. So I think they need to understand that players are first. Welfare of players are very, very paramount, very, very important to the development of sports in Africa. So going forward, I think all those things needs to be part of the enlightenment programs to those administering sports. And they all come to Europe. They all come to Premier League to watch. They all watch Premier League on their TV screen. They see how it is being done. But are they really doing what they meant to do? Absolutely no, they're not. So I think a lot needs to be done, and I hope gradually things will start getting shape.
Maybe an idea would be to get a template from a particular organisation that's already got something similar in place, that you can then present as a replica, as some sort of a guideline as to what you need to achieve, even on the level that you need to achieve it at. Have you thought about going to another club or to another country and saying, can you just share with us your setup plan so that we can improve ours back home? I'm sure that would be a good thing to do.
I think that is possible. One of the things that we actually approached the Nigerian Football Federation about is I think that was when we were in Nigeria in September to do some of our community support program that we do across the states. And one of the things that we actually put forward to them was areas of capacity building program, which is very, very relevant to grassroots and also to elite players. What we're actually trying to do there is to actually look at ways how we can better the lives of sportsmen and women, not just within football only, for them to do something, have something as a backup, or do some learning while they are playing. We have a lot of players that are doing that, combining both, but also can they start doing something around what they love doing, in case of any unforeseen circumstances that can happen, that will allow them not to probably do the game actively like they normally do, or looking at age at some point in time they want to retire. So we put this forward to them after a deep discussion and with the meeting with the FA of how we're going to be delivering that in Nigeria, because doing that in Nigeria from grassroots will actually help going forward from the age of 14. And just recently, we're still waiting for them to come back and say to us, and tell us, well, it's okay. We just need a support letter from them. If you look at how long it's taken us since July 2016 up to today. So we're still pushing them to give us just a yes as a support, to say, well, as a federation, we are going to be making sure this happens, because really it's going to add to the work that they are doing in Africa. And that's what we are working on. A lot of templates are on ground if they're ready to, if they open their hands. But one thing you see in Africa is they really want to frustrate you. They don't want to listen. They know what you're doing, what you're trying to do is okay, but would they listen? That's where the problem is. Would they take this up? That's where the headache is. So it's really something that we don't want to give up on. We're still pushing that, and I believe with time, they will allow this to happen.
That's great, and a very positive step to be taking. Part of where the way forward could well be some of the players that have left the country and have gone to play on foreign soil even some of those that have gone to play for different nationalities, would be a great idea to invite them home so that they can come and talk and represent for the players that are just coming through the ranks now. Is that something that you could see taking place that might even get the government to stand up and pay attention if you was to get former Zambian nationalists who are now playing in either France or Germany or Spain or somewhere else, or even people who have Zambian descent but play for different countries now because they were raised in France or somewhere else? Because that's the funny thing, and I've got to say this. There are more and more African players turning up in French and German colours than ever before, and I understand that with the migration and immigration and people travelling around the world, people are now being raised in different countries, but a lot of them were not born and choose not to play for Zambia. Not just Zambia. I'm highlighting Zambia because we're talking about Zambia. But there's a lot of the African countries you can clearly see by name that these people were not born in France or Germany. Is that something that's also killing your sport?
You just mentioned what we actually do in Team Nigeria UK. What actually led us to start that organization. The vision itself, the project itself, is because we realize we've been losing some of the best talents of Nigerian descent to other countries. Maybe their parents are from here, they are born in United Kingdom, for example, but they have parents that are Nigerians, so they have this option of either playing for England or Nigeria. A good example is a well-known player that is known to everybody is David Alaba, that plays for Bayern Munich. He would have opted to play for the Super Eagles or for Nigeria, but he never had any approach from the Nigerian Football Federation, according to a reliable source. But we are looking to interview him very soon. We're in good touch with him. So we asked some of those questions. These are the things that actually led, because there were no approach, no relationship, because one thing that actually led us to start that program also is we realized that there's a gap between Nigeria and the parents out here in United Kingdom. Despite the fact that most of them are born in Nigeria, but they came over to this country, they saw how things are being done. They saw they could see some kind of comfort, some kind of organization, on how things are being done compared to where they're coming from, and they just thought in their head, oh, listen, I don't think things are actually doing very well in Nigeria or in Africa. I would rather want my son to play for England. But this is why we started Team Nigeria UK, to start to try and reduce the gap, to bridge the gap, between Nigeria and those family, get them to understand that, it's not just all negatives. There's still some positives out there in Nigeria. And one thing you have to understand is, with England, there's so many top players. A lot of players are too many that wants to play for England. But the question is, would they actually end up playing for England? A lot of them are there that was waiting for England to give them a chance. The likes of Gabriel Agbonlahon, a lot of them, even Shola Amiobi was fortunate to have a World Cup call-up from Nigeria at the age of in his 30s to go to the World Cup. So that's what we're trying to do with Team Nigeria UK, to have that relationship, and it's really working. One of the things that we did in 2015 to actually to create that awareness out there and set up a partnership with the Nigerian Football Federation is to take 22 young Nigerian descents playing in different academies that are under 17 to go and play the Nigerian national team before the World Cup at the National Stadium in Abuja. They played a 2-game, which is a very, very an eye-opener for the country itself and the federation. They realized this is a very good project. And now that we started, a lot of countries have actually follow the step. The likes of South Africa, the likes of Zimbabwe in UK, they've actually wrote the same proposal. We actually gave them the templates, just to be honest, and they actually approached their FAs and people running the sports in their country to tell them that, listen, there's so many Zimbabwe British of Zimbabwean descent, and and a lot of them like that could actually represent the country. And it's good to see the likes of Ola, the Chuba Akpom. These are the people that we've been talking to, and a lot of them in our database that we're still talking to here in the UK, in Europe, in America, in Canada. It's not just here in the UK that we're working. So we're trying to do all what we can to make these young people understand that you have more chance and you stand a lot of good chance to represent the country, Nigeria, regardless what is going on. Every country has its own negatives, but it's the way it's been portrayed. So we're trying to sell the good side of what we're doing to them, and I think it's really working going forward now.
On a lighter note, I kind of see in the last few World Cups in particular, Nigeria is a force to be reckoned with. They're no longer the poor relations that come to the party anymore, but they are normally favourites for a quarter-final place at least, which puts them on par with the UK, England. England fare no better than quarter-final as far as World Cup is concerned, and they're very lucky if they manage to get themselves bidding for a semi-final place. Nigeria have now found themselves when they're coming into the World Cup as the tournament starts as almost one of those favourites that will be in a quarter-final position. Has the success that Nigeria had over the last 3 or so World Cups, has that not benefited them financially enough for them to start taking it seriously, that there is there is actually something to be had from this?
I think it's something that they are taking a bit of seriousness into now, compared to the last few years back. That there were a lot of noise, poor performance from the players from the main Super Eagles team, compared to now that we have some youthful, talented players mixed up with those in Europe. The likes of Alex Iwobi, the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho, all coming in. A lot of players from Europe, Ola enough from Chelsea. A lot of players are coming in that are of Nigerian descent, that is actually bringing beauty into the national team and making. And I think these are the things that is actually making the government, because the government still has a lot of power in terms of investing money into sports in Nigeria, and I think that's one of the core areas that we need to sport itself has to do as a body. Are they credible enough that will encourage sponsors to sponsor them? That's the thing, and that's where corruption stands. So I think they need to actually do a lot of work to actually sell their brands to these corporate bodies for them to get attracted to, and sponsors can actually come in. But without that, we're still going to be struggling in a way in terms of investment. But I think if they could secure a World Cup ticket, a lot of sponsorship will come in, a lot of benefits will come in, like it is now. They've played 2 out of 2, and they've won both games with the current squad. And the AFCON is still there that they're going to be playing, and then the next opponent will be against Cameroon. So if they actually get another 3 points in there, that will actually help, and also put the country in a state where a lot of people will come in to come and invest. The government will put in more money, and that will actually hopefully go down to the grassroots also to help solve some problems. I hope that will be the case.
You also need to look at the World Cup groups, because Africa is the only confederation that doesn't have a second chance. It isn't involved in any of the playoffs, so only group winners go to the World Cup. And the group that Nigeria is in has 3 of the last 4 Africa Cup of Nations winners in it. And the other team went to the last World Cup. So they have the most horrible World Cup group in Africa at the moment, which is Nigeria, Zambia, Cameroon, and Algeria. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And whereas England can always guarantee that they get 1 or 2 competitors and 2 or 3 paddies to play against, where they're patsies rather, where they're guaranteed some points and they're guaranteed to finish somewhere in the region of being able to qualify. It's a very, I understand that, and I suppose the difficulty is, and some people will turn around and say, well, you know, England have taken football a lot more seriously for a lot longer, and maybe they justify that by the amount of financial input that they put into the game, and most people know that without England involved, there is a real chance of a financial shortfall. So they need that financial input that they get from clubs or countries like England, who are a footballing nation, who a lot of money and marketing can be expected for them to invest in on their way to the World Cup. T-shirts, cups, mugs, saucers, you know, kits and all sorts of stuff. The whole marketing infrastructure that goes with heading towards a new World Cup. They can guarantee that England is going to be contributing some money and turning around some money, and there's going to be revenue involved. When Nigeria are going to the World Cup, is there the same sort of hysteria financially in a marketing way back home that generates a pool of cash that the country can turn around and say, or people outside the country can say, well, why aren't you using that money?
I can hardly hear the last side of your question, please, Kevin.
Well, I'm mainly referring to when Nigeria is going to the World Cup, when they have qualified to go to the World Cup. Is there a similar type of hysteria that has people going out and spending money on T-shirts, on shorts, on cups, on marketing stuff that generates money for the Football Association?
I think that's one of the things that is missing as well. Take, for example, the Nigerian national team jersey is not out here in diaspora. I don't think there's an outlet here that you can get it. Any of the souvenirs, any of the merchandise, I think is very, very scarce in Europe, anywhere here. Even people that I've actually spoken to, they're kind of struggling to get it back home. A lot of people have made inquiry. And this is an area that we've actually sent a request to the Federation for them to look at ways of we as a body here in United Kingdom to be an outlet for them so that people can actually, buy online, order some of these stuffs and everything. This generates some funds back into the system for them to actually have something to use. But yet, up to this hour, I can tell you they are slow in forthcoming. And I don't really understand why that is. Nike is the brand that is hitting Nigeria at present, but I don't understand why there is no availability of the outfits to everyone, those that actually wanted to order this. And this would have been a very good way to bring in some kind of revenue into the team, because Nigerians across the board are football crazy. They want to see their country, no matter how it is, qualify. They want to make noise and shout, and they believe this is a way for them to actually support and try and bring in some funds. But is the federation actually doing enough in those areas? I think they're not doing that much. And we're here, we're open, we're ready. As soon as they're ready, our website is there with the supplies. If they're ready, how are we going to be picking them up from Nike? And then people can then get the deliveries if they order across Europe from us. But it's really nothing happening. Nothing has changed ever since then. We're still waiting. Maybe tomorrow we'll hear from them. And then we'll look at how we can
see, because here's the gist of what I'm getting at the minute. The Football Federation are not going to do it all for you. So for me, there has to be a starting somewhere. Somebody has got to start doing something for themselves, for other people to see that there is something to invest in. That's how business works.
Yeah, I understand. What I'm trying to say is you can't just start. I think they should. They will be the one to give a go ahead.
No, no, David, I understand that, but I do believe that the Nigerian Football Federation should have been doing that from the get-go, right? Because
that's the problem. That's the problem, Kevin. That is not happening. It's really a struggle. You can hardly find merchandise in any store here in Europe. Even in Nigeria, I think people are struggling. They might see it somewhere. They might get it in the Nike shop, but not anywhere in Europe. And I think that's what is missing. That is a big problem.
You take the Turks or the Greeks, for example, right? The amount of merchandising that's bought in this country, in the UK, by UK-based Turkish or Greek people, when these clubs, these countries are going into World Cups, the amount that is generated by the expatriates, so to speak, that's where most of their money comes from. And so therefore, if you've got a World Cup taking place, or here or somewhere else close to Europe, most of these countries will rely on their expatriates. So you've got Nigerians in France and in Spain and in the UK who would, if they had access to it, financially support the country of their home origin. Because they could be proud, they could be walking. Because I'll tell you what, I know a lot of black people who because black is not altogether seen as British. When Nigeria are doing well in the World Cup, whether they be West Indian, Jamaican, or whatever, they're shouting for Nigeria.
Yeah, I think you're right, but it still brings me back to my point. The problem is from the federation.
Yeah,
the federation needs to do something to help this situation. It's really, really a bad one. Personally, we've approached Nike on this problem.
Okay.
We've approached Nike directly. The person that actually got the deal signed and everything, telling them that this is who we are, this is what we want to do, how we're going to get some of this merchandise in the market for people to actually order through our platform. And it's really going to bring money back to Nike, to the federation itself, to the football body in Nigeria and everything. This is what we're going to be doing. But really, nothing is coming forth. Nike is telling us we should speak to the federation. But nothing seems to happen. Nothing has happened since then.
Do you know if we go to Satish, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
If we can get the bigger African continental countries of the footballing world, the more renowned ones, the more well-known ones, the more successful ones, to put something concrete as an infrastructure in place, would that not help the smaller African countries that are struggling to try and find that infrastructural organization?
Yes, it will. But I think it also needs to be pointed out, one of the reasons that the Africa Cup of Nations at the moment is every 2 years is because it allows the development of sporting infrastructures in countries that otherwise would not have it and would not be getting to be able to compete and host. Now, the next Cup of Nations, there does seem to be a rather strange West and Central Africa focus over the last few years with the Cup of Nations. So it's not developing other areas of Africa and African football. However, it is one of these things that needs to be looked at. They need to actually put programs in place to train within coaching, within administration, the whole works of it. One of the great ironies of African football is it actually had a plan, and that plan was very, very, very effective. I'm talking about a revolution in football, and it really was a revolution. And that was in the 1960s, which made Ghana the African team of the 1960s. And it happened with Kwame Nkrumah realizing the power of football. So he recruited one of the most gifted organisers and administrators in African football history, Dr. Ohene Jan. And they then realised that they had to reorganise African football in Ghana. And they did so. They organised a new cup, a new league, and they had a black face in the dugout. One of the greatest coaches in African history, in the Cup of Nations history, is a young Ghanaian at the time. In his first tournament, Ghana hosted and won the Africa Cup of Nations for the first time. That was in 1963. I'm talking about the late, great Charles Kumi Gyamfi, one of only two people to have won the Africa Cup of Nations 3 times. But how many African coaches were there at the recent Africa Cup of Nations? They don't seem to invest in their own talent. They don't develop them in the way that the Ghanaian football revolution did. And it was such a strong revolution that it actually took 2 Cup of Nations after the terrible 1966 coup d'etat in Ghana. They still reached the Cup of Nations final in 1968 and again in 1970. You have to also bear in mind that they wanted to demote and humiliate the revolution through football. They actually appointed a man above the head of Charles Kumi Gyamfi. He won the Cup of Nations in 1963. He won it again in 1965. And in 1968, he was demoted to be the assistant coach of Ghana. The man who got the job later became one of the great World Cup winning coaches, Carlos Alberto Pereira, Brazilian. However, at the time, in 1967, he was a fitness coach who had never coached a single football team in his career. And yet, he was appointed above the head of the most successful coach in African history at that time. That is the mentality that you have to defeat. And until it is defeated, they are going to have trouble developing.
I hear you. Sorry, I hear you. I've just been interrupted by my daughter. But David.
Yes, please.
You know, when I think of all the things that we've talked about today, and we are coming towards the end of the show, and I'm just reading something at the minute. Sorry about that, Satish, because I was waiting for you to carry on, but I was just reading the recent trip to London, Nigeria's captain Oguneni Enazi, but I cannot get the link up because the link is not a link; it's just a typed link. So I was trying to get something ready to play, but I'm not going to be able to do it. But when you look at all the support that's going for Musonda and players like that, doesn't it make you think that somewhere along the line that those that are at the top are just not getting it?
Hello, Kevin, please. The line is very.
Okay.
Please.
Do you think that the people that are at the top are just not getting the importance or the significance of what needs to be done to support players like Musonda? I mean, we're talking about the infrastructure that needs to be put into place. We're talking about the money that can be made. We're talking about the marketing. We're talking about all these other things. But then, taking it right back to the beginning where we started, we talked about a player whose career and lifespan was cut short as far as his footballing career was concerned, and nothing has been done in order to help him, or not enough has been done in order to help him stabilize himself in some sort of a position that allows him to still be able to use his talents and his gifts to support the sport that he gave his limbs to.
I think like you mentioned, the people at the top, the people running sports in Africa, I think they know what is best to be done, but are they really doing it? I don't think they're doing enough, and I think that's where the problem lies. It brings us back to the same problem around corruption. it brings us back to the same problem about them coming. Like I said, they come to United Kingdom. They watch games here. They've been everywhere in Europe to watch World Cup games. They've been everywhere. They've seen how academies and football are being run, and then they sit and meet with administrators, people that run other FAs and everything. They can see how things are being done. Investments in sports, infrastructures, players' welfare, players' safeguarding, even support system in terms of funding. They see all those things, but are they ready to make a change? That's where the problem is. That's the question now. A lot of them are not ready to do that. A lot of them, despite the noise, the media and everything, they will tend to say, okay, well, we will do this, but after a while, you don't get to see anything happening. They set up a team, set up a board, nothing actually goes to effect. But I think what they need to do is to get the right people in place, people that wants to do this thing, people that have got passion, people that wants to do it with their hearts, despite the condition around, people that wants to come in and invest, not to be frustrated like people like ourselves that are trying to make a difference. We want to try and do something back home, but yet what you'll be seeing is frustration around you, trying to put you off the things that you need, things that you can get easily, quickly. They will delay it. All those things are the things that you'll find out that we encounter. But I think with time, with more pressure, with more media presence, people talking more, people raising their voice around it, I think they will have to stand up and try and make a difference and not just think about their pockets only.
Yeah, Satish, we are sort of like 9 minutes away from finish. Do you want to round up? Where do you see it going from here? What do you see the future is for the Musundas of this world? What do you see the future for what you're about to do and what you're doing? What do you see the future for Zambian football?
Well, I'm hoping that the future is going to include the project that we have going, a Sporting Chance of Aftercare, and the Academies project in particular, working not just with the Zambian Sports Ministry and Zambian clubs, but in Cameroon as well, and also in Nigeria, and basically wherever else it's needed. Now, I'm guessing you were referring to the message of support earlier that for Emi Musonda from the Nigerian captain Ogeni Nyasi.
That's correct.
I sent a link to you. I don't know if you've received it on Skype, which I think is what you were talking about. So you may now be able to play that.
I won't because I haven't got Skype set up on the system. It's on my phone.
Right. Then I will maybe try and play it on mine, and hopefully that will work. But before I do, I want to actually pay tribute to the Nigerian Federation, because when they were here in London, I asked them, would they help with sending messages of support to Musonda, and among the people, it actually took an email which they responded to within half an hour, promising and providing support. It resulted in Kayode Olanrawaju, Ogeni Onasi, Elderson Echijili, and the coach Gunnar Raw, all sending messages of support to Musonda to encourage him and to show him how much he means African football. And bear in mind, this is not even in Zambia. These were Nigerian, the Nigerian Federation that did that. Afterwards, at Blacklist Awards, among the people who also did that was Andy Cole, Paul Canaville, Chris Houghton, Chris Ramsey, and Ugo Echiog. The respected chief football writer of the Times, Henry Winter, has also done that, as well as some of the Zambian players, and as I mentioned at the start, the Egyptian legend Mahmoud El Khatib. And this all happened by simply asking people to do that once I had told them what had happened to Emmy Musonda. So this gives a lot of hope because people are actually saying and looking at this and seeing the way that Emmy has been treated, that he's been dealt a bad hand he could never have been dealt with, and they want to show him how much he means to them and to African football. And it isn't just Emmy Musonda, it's many, many other people as well. Now, I'm going to try and play the Onazi message now. I hope it works. It's a little bit slow.
You want me to play it from my end?
Has it started playing yet?
I don't know if you caught that or not.
Nope, that didn't come
Let
through.
me play it for you. 1 second.
Right. I'm not getting anything this end. All we have is silence. And we can't do silence.
I'm sorry, it's not working then. It was playing at my end.
Okay, no
I
worries.
just played it now.
No, it hasn't come through.
Oh, okay. I just played it now.
Okay, no, it hasn't come through. So once again, as far as our audience is concerned, I apologise for that silence. But we were trying to get an important message across to you. It wouldn't play, so bear with us.
It is on. Anybody who wants to listen to those messages, and there are plenty of them, go to www.empowersmag.com, and there are various links that have these messages. I'm just going to tell you exactly what they're called in a second. I've just got to put the thing up now. You would hear Onazi's message is in an article which is called just Super Eagles Encourage Zambian Legend Musonda. There's another one on which is on African football, and one from Henry Winter. Unfortunately, my system is messing around with...
It's on that one. It's on Africa Supports Legend.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, guys. Once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing what you shared. We look forward to meeting and speaking with you again at some point. David, I want to thank you very much for your time, for your contribution, and for your passion. And whatever we can do this end to support you in everything that you do, please don't hesitate to contact us, stay in contact with us, and let's not make this a one-time affair, but let's make this the beginning of a journey and a relationship that we'll take to try and bring football stability and security to the African continent.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Kevin.
That's fine. Satish, love you like cooked food. My long-time friend, sir. It's been a long while and we need to catch up again. Maybe you might have to take me out to Africa with you so I can go and speak to these delegates and tell them what time of day it is and get them to put some stuff in place. But thank you very much, my friend, for being on the show.
You're welcome. Kevin, the articles are called Journalists Must Do Better and Africa Supports Legendary Emmy Musonda Part 1. Anybody who wants to hear those messages of support and also Super Eagles Encourage Zambian Legend Musonda, in those 3 articles on Empowers Magazine, you will find these articles.
If you can, why don't you just drop the links on Issues Today, and we can forward them all over from there, sir.
Okay, I will do. Okay. And it's a pleasure as usual, Kerman.
As always. We'll speak again real soon, Satish. God bless. Take care. Yourself and David. Thank you very much. We're out of here.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're out of time. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
my time. I paid for my crime.
Just want to thank David and Satish one more time
I paid
for an absolutely enthralling encounter. Please do remember, you can join me again tomorrow morning for my Wake Up Everybody Sunday Gospel Show, Church Before Church.
my time. I paid for my crime.
And I'll be back next Saturday
Already did my time. I paid for
with a show entitled Which Child? With my dear friend Mike Ormsby, live in Bucharest,